If you're a frequent P&W Haunts and Homicides listener, you probably already know we're Birdie ambassadors.
We wanted to take a quick moment to tell you a little bit more about this awesome product.
Birdie is the modern personal safety alarm made for women by women.
In a situation where you feel threatened or unsafe, you can simply activate Birdie's loud siren and flashing light to create a diversion.
Birdie is perfect to carry anytime because the device is lightweight and comes in a variety of colors.
So important. Use our ambassador link and coupon code P&W Haunts and Homicides to receive 10% off your purchase. Like our social media handles, the coupon code is all spelled out, no special characters.
You can find the link and promo code in our show notes or P&W Haunts and Homicides link tree.
Have a safe ass day. Hi, Cassie.
Hi, Caitlin.
Hi, creepy people.
Hey. We're not this bubbly, I promise.
Yeah, no, that was kind of gross.
Yeah. Ew.
Ew. Anyway, what this is P&W Haunts and Homicides. I was trying to leave that open for you.
Oh, you're trying to leave it open
hard
for me to do what? To say
this is P&W Haunts and Homicides.
And I just wasn't getting it.
No, not picking up what I'm putting down.
It usually happens.
I mean, it's one or both of us. It's better when it's just one of us.
Mm-hmm. So we don't know what's happening if it's both of us.
No.
We've had those days. It's fine.
So we've actually been on a little bit of a hiatus from recording. We had a few things kind of ready to go. We've done some Zoom. So, Cassie, since we've been on such a long break, do you remember what we were talking about in our last episode?
See, if I was a good sidekick co-host, I would have had the episode edited by now.
I was going to say, I'm saying to you, good luck editing on this one. And I was like, I don't think you've probably done the other one yet.
I haven't done the other one yet. So it's like it's not fresh in my mind. But I remember the milking specifically.
Okay.
Oh, man.
Well, I will give you a little bit of a recap here.
Thank you.
You might just cut some of this out if it's just not utter nonsense.
No, I think it would be helpful for the recap.
Okay. I'm
utter nonsense.
Yeah. Oh, for fuck's sake. I'm so glad we're planning to do some Patreon stuff after this and not my next case, because it's definitely more serious, and I really just need to be like loosey-goosey today.
It's Fun Day Sunday.
Yeah. I know. My t-shirt says, and on Sundays, we do nothing.
Which is a lie.
It's an absolute lie, yeah. So here's the deal. Apparently, axe murders were like a super gnarly and majorly recurring crime in the early 1900s.
Axe murderers?
Axe murders.
Eesh.
There were several of these guys.
This is like especially terrifying for me. So when I was little, me and my friend, every time we were outside at night, we'd be like, the axe man is coming. The axe man. I don't know where we got it from, but
I do.
What?
I do.
Are you about to unlock a core fucking memory for me?
Maybe. I don't know if you know this. We'll get into it. Okay.
I'm getting chills.
Honestly, even well into the 20th century, they didn't seem to totally lose favor in the P&W. But that's a story for a different day. We'll get there, maybe, kind of. Suffice to say that in its heyday, it was super popular. There's no two ways about it. Axe murderers just be doing their best work during this time.
Ugh.
Yikes.
That's such a brutal way to fucking kill somebody.
It really is.
God. Lizzie Borden.
Yeah, I know. She doesn't come up as much as you would have thought in the course of my research, at least, but we'll get there.
That's because she was innocent, quote unquote.
Yeah, totally. When you start digging into them, you'll find out pretty quickly they happened all over the country, and there are some very notable ones that took place in our neck of the woods.
Oh.
There were so many that some people who've done the research believe there were one or more serial axe murderers. Yeah. So let's just get right into this deep dive, shall we? We've literally tried to put this off as long as we can.
I know. We tried real hard.
Real hard. So remember, we have the infamous Villisca murders, of course. Today, we're going to be talking about one of the two books that I read for my books. We're going to be talking about one of the two books that I read for the course of my research. It's The Man from the Train. The Villisca murders pop up for a good little chunk of the story in chapter 4, and then about a zillion more times.
Ooh.
Yeah. So we're only going to talk about the case in that it's such a big part of the book that I just felt like I couldn't not do a separate book review and then also leave it out here. So basically my hands were tied. Villisca is a bit of a stretch because if you aren't familiar with the case, it's, from Iowa, not exactly PNW, but I feel like it's really relevant here. So in case you don't recall or have never heard of this case, picture this. It's Sunday, June 9th, 1912 in Iowa, exactly a year after the Hill family is murdered, and the infamous Ardenwald axe murders send the Portland metro and surrounding areas into a tailspin. The streetlights are out because of a dispute between the power company and the city.
Oh.
Yeah, which is great. You love to see that because definitely, let's worry about the money. Whoever said people over profits was a chump. But in all seriousness, as much as we might complain about taxes, I think we can really start to understand and appreciate the value of decent infrastructure, even if we don't have much of it these days.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is under construction. You guys, my commute is a literal nightmare lately.
Yeah.
Everything is under construction for the foreseeable future, and gas is, I don't know, about $10 a gallon or some such nonsense. Right. So here's the thing, though. I'm willing to pay my taxes so there are lights and emergency services to assist citizens when needed, but also can we maybe do some of these public works projects with a bit of a sense of urgency? Just a thought.
Please.
Yeah. Maybe if we don't take a decade on every road improvement project, they won't cost an arm, a leg, your firstborn, plus whatever considerable portion of your income your particular tax bracket requires, and then also your sanity.
She's losing her mind. She's twitchy.
Yeah, just getting a little off track there, but let's face it, I'm too broke for therapy because I quit my second job for the podcast. So it may happen from time to time.
Just vent, girl.
Yeah. In Villisca, the Moore family had attended a church event that the mother Sarah had helped to put on. Present in the home the evening of the murders were the two parents and the Moore children, as well as two of the Moore children's friends.
Oh.
In this case, too, like the murders in Ardenwald, a neighbor was alerted that something was off because their chickens were squawking and no one seemed to notice or be taking care of their chores around the farm.
Oh.
So, apparently everyone was not super concerned about animal welfare for the sake of the animals, but mostly because it was just really unusual behavior for a family that's living on a farm to ignore their animals when their livelihood depended upon those animals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is the new murder, right?
Yeah.
It sounds...
Well, this is Villisca.
Yeah, the one in Iowa.
Mm-hmm.
And that sounds really familiar.
Mm-hmm. So eventually, Russ, this is the brother of Mr. Moore, was contacted by a concerned neighbor. As he had a key, he would be the one to enter the home.
Don't do it.
I know.
Don't go in.
Don't do it. He unlocked the door and stepped inside to find the family. His brother and his brother's wife, as well as the 4 children, including the 2 that had been visiting, all dead.
What the fuck?
Yeah. Not just dead, but obviously, as axe murders would imply, brutally slain. So the reason why we're talking about the Villisca axe murders again is that I came across the Man from the Train book through the course of my research. Like I said, I mentioned this book because it discussed many of these eerily similar cases and purported that not only were many of them the work of a serial killer who traveled by rail, but that the authors felt they knew who this individual was. So I remain dubious about the latter of those claims. Could there have been one or more serial killers committing these crimes? Do I agree with all of their specific theories and inferences? Go ahead and just grab a drink now, because believe me, you'll need it. Whether you're going to rosé all day or caffeinate, you'll want your beverage of choice handy.
Okay, great.
So, cheers!
Cheers!
Now, you may recall that in relation to the Ardenwald axe murders, we talked about a fairly sizable cash reward that was gathered from multiple sources, partially government funded and partly from private citizens and businesses. So we're about to get to a big reason why this was such a common practice of the era. Because I don't know about you, but like, did that not seem weird that it's like, why is there such a big push to like do this reward fund? And why is most of the money like not even, nowadays, if there was a reward, it'd be like the authorities, like the FBI is putting this together.
Yeah.
I mean, is it just me?
Oh, it's weird.
So private investigators and agencies were often hired by police and local communities. That's right. The police hired PIs to investigate murder cases.
What?
Yeah. Some famous examples of these types of agencies include the Pinkerton and Burns agencies, which had a reputation for doggedly pursuing cases, which it turns out was both good and bad, as I'm sure you can imagine. Privatize and monetize policing and investigations? What could go wrong, you say?
Seems legit.
Yeah. At first blush, you might be tempted to naively think it would be good to bring on others who would be more equipped to tackle the task than the inexperienced and no doubt small police forces employed in those small railroad towns and villages. Because let's be honest, we talked about, the other police department that was in Ardenwald, and it just didn't really seem like they were up to the task.
No. Not even close, I feel like.
Well, first and foremost, because funds were raised for the investigations with the victim's family being the first stop. So before funds from local government and those in the community were pursued, and in some rare exceptions, they might go higher up within the government. Basically, what that boils down to is that those in poor and other ways marginalized communities couldn't get much done in their cases because of fucking course.
Yeah. Tale as old as time.
Basically, I know. I
Did you write that down?
No.
Oh my God.
No, but that's exactly. I felt like I was kind of hearing that in my head.
Yeah.
Like, okay. Yeah, that tracks.
Fucked up.
Yeah.
Don't agree.
Hate it.
Fix it.
Yeah. I mean, it's striking, and it's not lost on me for a single second how this is still very much the case today in many instances where the marginalized go missing. Though I'd argue these days, though, that rather than dollars and cents, the currency that's lacking in many of these cases today is attention in the media or on social media.
Yeah.
Like, a certain missing white woman syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
So these super awesome, completely ethical, not at all meddlesome or greedy private investigators worked in concert with local law enforcement to look into these pesky axe murders and a few other interspersed crimes.
Oh.
Yeah. Also pesky. Now, as we've discussed, there were a number of crimes that either law enforcement, private investigators, or media publications claimed, even in this time period, to be part of a serial killer's spree. Of course, they didn't have any of that terminology back then, but the old-timey descriptions, however different from today's terminology, they got the point across.
This guy just keeps killing people, just keeps doing it in the same way.
Well, it would be things like another family slain or, old-timey shit. You get the idea. So, for instance, in 1911, Rainier, Washington was just an unincorporated village about 112 miles north of Portland with about 100 people living there at the time.
Oh,
so cute. 1 month after the Ardenwald axe murders and the brutal death of the Hill family, another terrible crime would take place in Rainier. Archie and Nettie Cobble, some sources say Coble, I don't know. The spelling looks more like Coble to me. Their reported ages, 25, and for Nettie, 16 to 18, depending on the source. Kind of weird that we can't nail down some of these people's ages, but
yeah, right?
They were a young couple that had been married for less than a year.
Aww.
They were found brutally murdered in their bed. And you guessed it, their murderer had used an axe.
Ew.
Yeah, not the best. According to the author of The Man from the Train, it was inaccurately reported by the Centralia Weekly Chronicle that Nettie had been raped prior to her death. Honestly, this seems to be a little bit of a point of contention between the various source material because Murder and Mayhem in Portland, Oregon does state that poor Nettie was reportedly raped. However, I got real far down a rabbit hole.
Oh, shit.
I was able to pull other source material, like some of these very old-timey news articles from the time, and they didn't mention it. But here's my theory. This may have been more so because of the time, not because it didn't happen.
Oh.
I think that might have been considered just too delicate a topic for some publications to even broach.
Yeah, I could see that for sure.
Yeah. Here's the thing. Even if some materials did note the assault, it wouldn't be all that surprising if that specific part of the story was just based on that one original publication's assertion, rather than receiving a confirmation from local law enforcement. It was still the Wild West out here. At least journalistically speaking, for sure.
Yeah.
So to me, it seems not unreasonable that sexual assault could have been the motive for the murder, since robbery clearly wasn't. And it wasn't because no valuables were taken, and that included even the $405 that the couple had kept in a coffee can in the home.
Oh, that was like their life savings.
Yeah. I mean, same.
I know, right? That was a lot for back then, though.
That was a metric fuck ton of money, I think, just about. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, quite literally, they're a very young married couple. And I think we talked about last time the original reward that was gathered up for the Hill family was like $1,750, which was a pretty good size amount of money. So this is, I mean, like you said, literally their life savings.
Yeah. I wonder, that's crazy. They're kind of young. I wonder where they got all that money.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. Either way.
It was her dowry.
Yeah, I don't know.
How do you say it? Dowry?
Dowry. Yeah, dowry.
When I say dowry?
Kind of, yeah. It was like a little bit of a
dowel.
growl.
Like a dowel.
Yeah, a dowel. God.
I've been watching Bridgerton, so.
Oh, you know what's really funny? You're gonna have so much editing.
It's fine.
Oh my God. Literally, my next sentence in this, though, is either way, let's get back to the meat of the case, which is like, did I know we were going to get totally off track? This couple's home was very close to the train tracks, but it had not been locked up following the crime as far as we know. That's significant so long as we're discussing the theory laid out in The Man from the Train book. That's because the author believes that both the Coble couple and the Hill family were murdered by the same man, the man from the train. I'm not going to lay out all of the suspects that were looked at for both of the crimes because we'd literally be talking about axe murders into 2023 more than likely.
Oh, so many axe mans.
So many axe mans. But I do want to cover some of the key players, at least in relation to this book. We may circle back to some of these other axe murders and the various suspects in future episodes, just so you don't feel like you're missing out. So circling back to our suspects from the last time that we talked, some of them make another appearance. Swan Peterson and George Wilson, you may recall from the previous episode about the Hill family being murdered in Ardenwald. They were also implicated in this heinous crime in Rainier.
Oh.
And some of these suspects, it's like, okay, I can see where maybe even now, not even just back then, that they would have thought, yeah, these guys might be good for it. There's some things that like maybe at least circumstantially tie them. So, well, George Wilson did end up being convicted in this case, despite the fact that our author believes that the man from the train, who shall not yet be named.
Voldemort.
Yeah, I know. By the end of this book, it was like he was just this like figurehead. I was like, Jesus Christ, is it the Queen of England? So, enter someone else you more than likely remember, Nathan Harvey. Do you remember him, Cassie?
What if I don't?
I know you won't. Normally you would if we had just recorded this one like last week.
Or if I would have edited it like
yeah.
Good human.
Yeah. No, you're so funny. Enter someone else you more than likely remember, Nathan Harvey. I think I said last time that someone should maybe keep an eye on him. Yeah. He was one of the suspects that we talked about in the last episode. The property that his home sat on was bordered by the Hills, and he was engaged in a property dispute with them. Also, he slept outside in a tent the night of the murder, having arrived home late, which was also not just that he got home super late at night, but suspiciously within probably just a few minutes of the violent attack.
Weird.
I know, so weird. Now, it's possible that he was just drunk and he didn't want to piss off his wife after staying out so late, presumably drinking with his buddies at the Rose Festival Starlight Parade.
Oh, party.
But what did I say about like a bunch of bros all trying to go with this same weird story? Why are so many of y'all sleeping out in tents in your yard?
Oh. Yeah.
Y'all need to get into couples counseling.
Did they all do it together?
I don't know.
Oh.
It's really bizarre. But it gets weirder. That's all pretty circumstantial, but I do have some other damning information that just might sweeten the pot. In June of 1892, another horrific crime occurred. The Mamie Walsh murder occurred a few miles west of Ardenwald. Want to guess where? In a strawberry patch that one Nathan Harvey happened to own.
Oh. Strawberry patch seems magical and fairy-like and no,
because that's where the murder happened. No, it's certainly possible that he had been very unfortunate to have lived in close proximity to multiple violent crimes, right? After all, the murders took place decades apart. Well, maybe by today's standards, but in the early 1900s, not so much. This dude was starting to look pretty sketch to basically everyone, because they're like, hey, how many of your neighbors are gonna die like on or around your property?
Oh
and
my
he's
God.
like, I don't know. Fuck around and find out.
Oh, no. I'm
Yeah.
still alive. Everything must be fine.
Yeah, I'm not seeing the problem. Poor 14-year-old Mamie Walsh had been raped and strangled when she went berry picking near the river.
Stop it.
I know. It's kind of soul-crushing.
She was just berry picking, man.
I know, and she was a literal baby. Nathan Harvey, it's important to note, obviously wasn't convicted of this crime. So just remember to add that little pinch of salt. But as J.D. Chandler, our mayhem and murder author, put it, rumors about the violent deaths that plagued his family were also popular. These deaths actually occurred before that of Mamie Walsh. So you guys, I said keep an eye on him, and no one fucking did it.
Your time machine didn't work.
I know. Nothing. Nathan's younger brother, William Corwin Harvey, had drowned during what I can only assume was very normal water recreation at the time, but I don't be diving off rocks. And I'll be honest, this is kind of why.
Oh.
Yeah. So this is the tip of the iceberg, though. His father left money to all three Harvey boys after his death before the family moved away from Iowa. So wouldn't you know that the rest of his family also ends up dead?
Weird.
I know. Nothing to see here, though.
Who gets all their money?
Let me tell you about his mother and the other brother, Daniel, and you can decide if this seems like it passes a sniff test.
I was literally going to be like, smells bad.
It smells real bad.
Oh.
The mother, Mary Harvey, or Mary Bunell, as she was known at the time of her death, since she had remarried, lived with her husband and son, Daniel Harvey. So this is her second husband.
Okay.
Her husband would find them both dead from an apparent murder-suicide, having slept clean through the crime.
What?
Okay, good. I'm like,
what?
Please, someone tell me. I need for some of you guys to have follow-up questions about this.
In the same house?
Oh, yeah.
Did they have, what's that fucking sleeping pill back then?
No. They
What's
didn't.
it called?
Ambien?
Yeah, that. Did they have Ambien back then?
No, I literally cannot wrap my head around this. So it was a murder-suicide. So they died together.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty suspicious too, but I'm pretty focused on Nathan right now. So I think it's super sketch that stepdaddy sleeps through this murder-suicide, but I feel like Nathan, he is a classic case of where there's smoke, there's fire.
Oh.
Daniel had apparently crept into his mother's room, attacked her with a hitch knife, and then killed himself at her bedside.
What?
Which is a little bit, I don't know. It's creepy.
That's just so weird.
Yeah. I don't love it. Also, who comes up with that narrative?
Yeah.
What? I'm okay.
I don't know.
Yeah. Sniff test failed. Much like the Strawberry Patch murder, as it was coined, there was another that occurred that included violence against a young girl, but took place in a different part of the country. So I'm really trying to keep this on track and tie things together for you guys. Whether we believe Nathan Harvey to be guilty of either of the murders, Mamie, any of his family, the Hill family. Oh, let's see, did we miss anyone? I think that's it.
Jeez.
The author certainly believes that the two crimes illustrate some important differences and similarities of various crimes. So we're going to talk about the Ardenwald axe murders and then another one that happened across the country. And Cassie, what was that story that you were telling me about? The axe man?
The axe man. Is he real? Stop it.
I'll let you decide.
I literally don't know where we came up with that.
Yeah, I think it might be based in like folklore that originates from one of these stories. Because literally these axe murders were the prevalence of this, I can't get over it. It's insane. So the crimes we're going to talk about here there's one that took place in New Orleans, and that's juxtaposed against the Hill family murders, and then some others that were similar to the Hill family murders. Okay? So I've set the scene.
Okay.
And here's the thing. The author believes that the Hill family murder was committed by his mysterious man from the train, Voldemort. So we'll keep that in mind, though, especially because there's no way that I'm going to get to every case that the author discussed in the book, whether he believes it to be a part of the series of the same murderous crimes or not. There's so many, but I'm going to try to kind of hit on the main points and cases that I felt like were interesting and illustrated sort of the pattern that we're working with.
Okay.
So, in New Orleans, without getting into the details of the crime and totally retelling that story, this guy was also an axeman. But the author of Man from the Train has determined that this man is not one and the same as the man from the train. Try saying that 5 times fast.
Oh my God, no.
Or
I don't
even
know
just
what
once.
You said. I was going to be like, what did you say?
What? So we don't believe that the Ardenwald murders and the New Orleans axe murders were committed by the same person.
Okay.
5 things in common between crimes committed by the perpetrator in New Orleans and the Hill family murders, and others believed to be the work of the man from the fucking train.
What train did he ride? What is this train?
So it's not a particular train, because that is sort of a misleading thing. I went into this book thinking that we are talking about someone that was spotted on a train, like there was a witness. No.
Oh.
We're literally just talking about, well, we'll get there. Spoilers, Cassie.
Sorry,
How'd you get me to almost do that?
Interested in the train.
She's like, I just want to talk about the choo-choo. So, the first and obvious similarity, both crimes, these families were attacked with an axe. Doy. Both were attacked in the middle of the night, but we're going to come back to this. Number 3, normally they used an axe taken from the scene.
Oh, so like when they found at the home?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Interesting.
Number 4, said axe was then abandoned at the scene following the crime. Because they're like, oh, this isn't mine. I shouldn't take it with me.
Yeah.
Because minor theft was probably what you should be worried about at that point, right?
Damn.
Number 5, it was apparent that the primary motive was not robbery. He's not simply a common thief or burglar whose crimes then escalate to a level of violence that few can fathom. No, murder is the goal. On these points, I can generally agree with our author, okay? I think we can make the case on that. I've read the book, just take my word for it.
Okay.
In New Orleans, the Axeman attacked at around 3 to 4 a.m. using the sharp side of the axe, which was smaller and more like a meat cleaver. These attacks occurred in the city, and most were not close to the train tracks. Sometimes, at minimum, this guy would try to make it look like robbery. This is what I like to call feigning robbery. He's like trying to stage it. So he does something like he'll like rummage through stuff and try to be like, oh, I was looking to steal a thing.
But not very effectively.
Yeah. So he's trying to maybe trick the police. Roughly 22 alleged victims. Now, there's some disagreement on exact figures here, since we can't be sure what crimes were committed by who. Of those 22 alleged victims, it led to 12 survivors versus 10 deaths. Sometimes people in other rooms of the home were left completely unharmed.
Weird.
Yeah. This guy was an amateur by our author's assessment. So that's Mr. New Orleans.
Okay.
We've got another promo roll that we are really excited to share today.
I'm Jennifer James.
I'm Jill Stanley.
We're psychics.
We're sisters.
We are the hosts of the Common Mystics podcast.
If you enjoy creepy stories,
Road trips,
haunted locations,
history,
and mysteries,
then the Common Mystics podcast is for you. Check out our website at commonmystics.net. Find us on Apple Podcasts
or wherever you're listening to your favorite pods.
You guys, we're back. The man from the train attacked within an hour of midnight, roughly, with the blunt side of the axe, which was a heavier style of weapon or tool, something more like what you would use when cutting down a tree. I'm so sorry these words are coming out of my mouth, but he favored victims that were little girls.
I don't know what that sound was, but
it was extreme displeasure.
Very uncomfortable.
Uh-huh. The attacks took place in primarily rural places that were always very near train tracks from on foot. So they had to be real close. He would also typically set the house on fire or leave it completely sealed up after everyone was dead. Sometimes both. Which is like, okay, what's the point of locking the door if you're going to burn the house down?
Yeah.
Just
Why
his
wouldn't
style.
you do that every time, too? Like, I feel like that's a pretty good way to destroy evidence. Not that I'm suggesting anybody do that.
Yeah. It's really weird. Like, I don't know what basically spurred him to take it a step further and leave some of the houses and light them on fire. But that is just kind of the pattern that we look at.
Maybe he didn't have time. He had a train to catch.
Yeah, I mean, that's very possible. The man from the train annihilated everyone. If he came to your home, everyone was dead.
Oh.
Overkill style.
Yeah.
He would sometimes remain in the house undetected for 1 to 2 hours.
Ew. Doing
That
what?
Isn't that the creepiest part? Yeah, we talked about it last time.
Okay, I blocked it out. I don't want to.
Strong strategy for your mental health. Yeah. So I thought this was interesting, though. The fact that he remained in the house for all that time is something that our author seems to think makes him highly skilled as killers go. I'll let you form your own opinions on that particular point. He did go undetected for those 1 to 2 hours, so maybe there's an argument to be had there. He never stole.
Interesting.
Yeah. Which, okay, yeah, that's enlightening in terms of his MO possibly, but also we're not handing out cookies and trophies to murderers who don't also have sticky fingers. Where the New Orleans killer was amateurish, he was highly skilled. Arguably because he didn't seem to leave survivors. And he seemed like he was driven by a singular purpose. So maybe that's true.
And he didn't even try to make it look like anything else.
Nope. And there's another really weird factoid that I know I have in here that I felt like was very confusing. When we get there, you're going to be like, what? We're almost there. Full disclosure, I had to stop with the book. I watched a video and I'll link that too. It's just over 48 minutes long and entitled Most Notorious. The book was just kind of seemingly endless and a little bit, well, a completely aimless thread of never-ending axe murders, and the author really started to lose me.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Look, each of these crimes is really sad, but it felt truly meandering.
Oh.
I need the sweet, sweet dopamine that can only come from hearing about at least a couple of loose ends getting tied up with the theory.
You didn't just skip to the end?
I tried and I couldn't find where he named the killer.
God.
And then I had to rewind and then I skipped forward again and was very lost and confused and scared. We're going to get right to the point here. Okay?
Jesus, get there, Caitlin.
This is the juicy stuff, okay? The author thinks that Paul Mueller did it. But I was a few hours into the book and I had no idea who the fuck this guy was.
Who's Paul Mueller?
Exactly. The name didn't ring a single bell. At fucking all.
Mueller?
Right? Yes.
Weird.
So probably this is where we all want to know more about Paul Mueller. And this is what I have. He was a German sailor, a short, surly guy who worked for some people named the Newtons. End of monologue.
Oh, that's it?
Yeah, at least for us. Now, I was not going to go down a rabbit hole and look into this. There are some interesting theories. I'll give you a little tiny snippet here, and then we're going to go into some other details, and we'll wrap things up.
Okay.
Apparently, there was a murder in Munich that was very similar to many of the murders committed by the man from the train.
Okay.
All right. So, this very lovely lady, who happens to be his daughter, in addition to being her father's research assistant, with co-author credit, I believe. She says in the interview they're developing a TV show, but also mentions how it's hush-hush. I don't think I've ever heard of a TV show based on this book, but if anybody else has, please, for the love of God, let us know, because I need to know if the TV show got made and how it turned out.
Yeah, why was it hush-hush?
So weird. Well, I think what she was trying to say is like, oh, we're negotiating to try to do a TV show, and so she couldn't really say anything, and I think she was trying to create some buzz, and I was like, I see what you're doing. I see you. I see you. So the book started off strong, but they really lose focus along the way. All of the reviews are right. All of the 1 and 2 stars and all of the 3 and 4 stars, because I can see how it works either way. Okay. It starts off really strong. So if you write your review in the first, couple of hours of listening to the book or reading it, yeah, you're going to rate it 3 or 4 stars, possibly 5, probably overly generous. If you write your review at the very end, you're giving it 1 or 2 stars. So they desperately needed an editor and to not discuss every violent crime in a several-year period all across the country.
Yeah.
It's just too much. And I felt like the tone was really condescending almost constantly.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Well, like, the point of a book like this is for them to go through all the murders and figure out which ones correlate or relate. I don't know.
I felt like there were a lot where he was wanting to talk about the cases because he had researched them, like the New Orleans Axeman. And I felt like it was helpful up to that point, where they get to the point where they talk about the New Orleans Axeman and they kind of show you 2 crimes that on the surface are very similar, but then you really drill down and they're very different.
Yeah.
I felt like that was really helpful. But the fact that he did that 11 more times.
One example is good.
So either the evidence to support their theory was tenuous at best in the first place, which is kind of the direction that I lean in, or their motivation to explain it was. After a certain number of chapters, it's clear that the 1 to 3 star reviews were written by people who made it that far with serious regrets. I think most of the 4 or better were probably written just after a few pages, and those people just didn't update their reviews.
Oh.
So
I would never write a review until I finish something.
right? You got to finish the book, guys. You got to finish the book. What was interesting, though, was I had seen some of the more negative reviews. And I thought, okay, I mean, everybody feels differently about books. I usually don't let that influence me too much, especially because for me, I'm like, I need, books on this topic. And some of them, it's really thin. as far as source material out there. And one of the really positive reviews was written by somebody who was retired law enforcement, which in hindsight is very scary that he thought this was good analysis.
Oh boy.
I'll just leave that there. So
you guys can decide what it means.
Yeah. What's sad about this book is that they might be totally 1,000% correct, but very few people will make it to the end of the book and come to that same conclusion. Just because I think that you need to have it tied together a little bit better. The point you said it so perfectly, where it's like, if you're writing a book about this, your job is to do the research and present your theory and like the evidence and the examples that will help us come to that same conclusion.
Yeah.
If it makes sense. So, but I'm going to kind of wrap it up here. Okay. So basically in chapter 35, the author says the man from the train was definitely not, in his words, a hobo.
Okay.
He maybe worked in a job that had something to do with lumber. Lovely. Well, just so we're all clear, hobo is a little bit of a gray area in terminology. At its core, according to our author, it refers to a person that's essentially houseless or nomadic in nature, but that does work for a living. Honestly, I just don't think that the origin of the word or the original meaning always matters as much as the connotation in the time in which you use it.
Yeah, exactly.
I think we all have a pretty negative connotation to hobo.
Yeah.
I feel really uncomfortable even saying it.
I know. It's sad.
Anyway, this man, Paul Mueller, this is the man that the author believes commit the crimes. He is categorized as the responsibility of the man from the train. If indeed Paul is our man, he followed a geographic pattern close to railroads. He would commit his crime shortly before departing the area, and he never stayed in one place for more than a few months, based on the author's research. The next allegedly linked crime was then always commit somewhere about 1 to 400 miles away. Wait,
Okay.
100 to 400, not 1 mile to 400 miles.
I get you.
So all of this kind of makes some sort of sense, I believe, basically. I just think they could have done a better job tying these things together. In the end, I was a little bit frustrated that loosely grouped facts were presented, and because the organization and analysis felt a little bit lacking, it just didn't seem to adequately prove the points he was trying to make. I think that probably more than likely a series of maps and graphs, charts, or maybe even an actual timeline that you could reference in the book probably were needed so that you could adequately back up and actually illustrate kind of everything that he was trying to prove, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you'd think you'd work so hard on something, you'd want it to make sense in the end.
I know. And that was the tough part, is that I was so frustrated with this. I mean, how many times am I going to tell you I had 2 different versions of notes?
Yeah.
But I was I was super frustrated, but I was also just kind of sad about it because I'm I can tell that he poured himself into writing this book. But I think one really good example, so that you understand I'm not trying to be overly critical, is this. The author, just for context, provides this as a total throwaway fact, randomly in a passage where really no context was provided.
Okay.
He thinks his man from the train left money in the homes.
What?
Yeah. So this is the one I was telling you. We'll get back to it. It's just so bizarre.
Huh.
I just can't picture a situation where somebody would do this. So to clarify, it's not that he's simply reiterating that the man from the train didn't steal money from the victims, but he's literally saying that the man from the train left some of his own money in the home before setting them on fire, sealing them up, and abandoning the scene. Why does he think that?
But why?
It's a bizarre assertion. And were it true, it would be a very strange thing for a murderer to do.
Mm-hmm. And how would they even know that if they were set on fire?
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't know that.
You wouldn't. Yeah. And not all of the houses that he thinks were part of this like crime series were lit on fire. And so maybe that is something that came up in some of those crimes. But he drops it just as quickly as he had picked it up. We'll literally never know why he thinks that.
Oh my God. That is so frustrating.
Yeah.
What?
Okay. That is exactly why I picked this example, because you're like, what? I have so many questions.
Yeah.
Nope, that's it.
Okay.
He also mentions that the crimes associated with the man from the train all took place in logging towns. Bro, everyone lived and worked in or near a logging town or the railroad practically. That doesn't seem like it's not evidence of anything in my mind other than the fact that the railroad was boss as transportation back then.
Yeah.
I mean, it was the major mode of travel in the continental U.S.
It's like saying like murders happen if you live off the highway now.
To my mind, he makes some pretty wild or unsupported claims like that. He also asserts that all who disagree, and he literally just, Cassie, you're going to hate this. Anybody who disagrees are off the reservation.
What?
A lot to unpack here, starting with, let's maybe not use that turn of phrase.
Excuse me?
Hasn't aged that well,
No.
in my opinion.
Wow.
And I'm confident that I'm not alone in that. He specifically references some of J.D. Chandler's conclusions in connection with this phrase. Not going to repeat it. If you didn't catch it, rewind. J.D.'s book only has a handful of pages about the Ardenwald axe murders in it, but there's a ton of other stories. It's well researched and written based on my experience. So even if the two don't come to all of the same conclusions about a variety of cases and details, I think it was really interesting to review side by side, definitely. The opinions and theories of the author, J.D., are occasionally interspersed, but I feel like they're mostly shared because a specific person involved in the story held the belief, or it's better explained in relation to the facts of the case. I think that parts of the Man from the Train book and the theory therein, there's merit, but also there's a lot of logical fallacies that make a cohesive narrative or theory of the crime difficult to arrive at in a way that will satisfy critical readers. And apparently I'm a very critical reader. All of this is basically to say I haven't heard a thing that makes me think there's a better suspect than Nathan Harvey in the Hill family murders. J.D. Chandler also seems inclined to believe the same. I think you might be able to make the case that with as many violent crimes that happened in like uncomfortably close proximity to him, that he was a serial killer.
Yeah.
I take no issue with that as a possible theory. But I also like to both zoom in on the individual crime and then kind of back out at the larger grouping. I think it's, again, very possible that Nathan Harvey was a serial killer. He's dead, so I don't think there's any harm in speculating. In general, though, I think we have to be a little bit more careful about drawing connections between cases out of optimism rather than facts when they're active.
Yeah.
These ones, I don't think that there's necessarily any harm in speculating about certain ones being tied together. I just don't think the case was made. Like I said, I am giving Nathan Harvey some serious side eye for other crimes in the vicinity and in his past. I could even see that there are possibly other crimes that the author thinks are Man from the Train crimes, major air bunnies, that Nathan Harvey could have commit. I don't know this dude's life, but Cassie, did you catch? He was from Iowa. And the Villisca murders happened exactly a year after his nearby neighbors were killed. Like, does he have an alibi for that date?
Yeah, seriously.
So you move from Iowa to Oregon. Your neighbors in Oregon die. Then back in your home state a year later to the date, the Villisca axe murders happen?
Was he visiting
I don't
or?
know. I don't know. And I think some of the other crimes that were nearby, we talked about some of them. I think they were close enough that, yeah, you could literally hop on a train and it's very feasible that he could have committed some of the others. I don't know that there's a lot of good evidence to support any of the other crimes. Mamie Walsh, I think that was like literally on his property. Seems like he could be good for that one.
God.
So I think many of the crimes that were discussed could reasonably be attributed to him. Ardenwald and many others like it, they're unsolved crimes. And I think at this point, it's probably safe to assume that that crime and possibly a number of others from this era will likely remain that way.
I know, it's so
Unless we get a tarot card that says Nathan Harvey on it.
Right?
I don't know.
He's your dude.
Yeah. So.
Does that mean we're ready for the tarot?
I mean, we're as ready as we're going to be.
If Patreon is watching right now, I mean, yeah, you're watching.
Yeah, you're watching.
There's a really cute little puppy on the bed right now.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
He's so cute. It's a stuffed animal for everyone listening who can't see us.
But it looks just like the real pod dogs.
We had a popper.
Okay. Well, we're going to see what this one says. And then we might still...
Ooh, 5 of Wands. Caitlin doesn't trust the poppers.
I turned right to Wands, though, after that.
I think that was a fucking sign. I mean, come on. How much more clear could they be?
I don't know. I'm not convinced they can be.
We can do as many readings as we want, so.
It's true.
This is our show.
Yeah. Okay, so 5 of Wands. We have our keywords: competition, ego battles, disagreements, and confusion.
That sounds like the literal book that...
Sounds like the investigation of the cases. It sounds like a lot of things.
Yeah.
Okay, so in the upright position, which I did overturn it upright, it says bickering and self-interest cause irritation. And you need to concern yourself with getting matters back on track. Discontent may arise from differences in philosophy or personality. Wow. When this card shows up, you may be defending your territory, putting up a fight to hold on to what you think is yours. Try to assess the situation objectively. This may be a mock battle or a conflict of egos that lacks genuine substance.
Oh, wow.
Okay. One of the things that I said about the book, about, the Man from the Train book, was that this guy comes across as very condescending in his writing. It's like very egotistical.
It totally relates to this card that we just drew, and that's kind of how you felt about the book.
Yeah, I mean, it very definitely is. Okay, now I'm so excited for the rest of this. Okay. In a reading about money, this card may show your financial situation is unstable or competition is cutting into your take. Arguments about money and spending cause tension. Like maybe your wife is mad because you don't have very much money because you keep leaving your money in the victims' houses.
Oh. That's what I was thinking too, the whole money, because we were talking about money and stuff.
Okay, so I'm not just stretching. In a reading about work, the 5 can represent competition in the marketplace, in-house conflicts.
Ooh, that's interesting.
Oh my gosh. In-house conflicts or stubbornness may also cause problems. Maybe you're confused about your direction or you lack self-confidence. In a reading about love, this card suggests you're letting your ego rule. You may stubbornly refuse to compromise or make necessary changes. The 5 can also reveal differences of perspective that can cause problems.
This literally is just screaming everything, every complaint you had about the book, which was a really big part of this episode.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like there's definitely, there's some interesting parallels that you can draw to some of these things to specific suspects in the case as well.
Oh.
I'm thinking of like all of these dudes sleeping in the tent in their yard.
Yeah.
Like, dude, get it together. Like,
Yeah.
be better in your relationship. Like, happy spouse, happy house. You can literally resume sleeping indoors.
That's weird.
I don't know. There's so many things where it's like you could really apply that to a lot about this case and about this book specifically.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
and
interesting.
the phrase in-house, because everything was like they were all murdered in their homes. And
I don't love that.
yeah.
It's not for me. I don't like it. I don't like it.
Was there more?
No, that's it. That's all we
it?
got for the interpretation. Yeah. I was looking to see if there was like a little excerpt or anything, and not for this particular section of the book. So I think, I mean, do we even need anything else? Come
I don't know. I mean, that was pretty spot on, but I feel like you're...
Do you want to draw a card specifically for our perpetrator?
We can try, yeah. Just for more insight into the actual murders, maybe who done it.
I do think that this is also really interesting that the Five of Wands, I know she showed you guys, but I'm just looking at it again. I'm just seeing a lot of like, it's just an illustration of conflict. And can I say also, this is probably supposed to be leaves or something else, but does that not look like on the corner of her jacket, blood spatter?
Ew, it does.
That's so bizarre.
Yeah. We'll post a picture of that for sure. I mean, we always do.
Yeah. I know we say that like,
If you're new
here. Welcome.
Hi. Hope you stay. Okay. So I'm going to have her cut.
Okay.
And we're going to see if it
So
can give
weird.
us more insight into the case.
Okay. I feel like I've got like one that's like calling to me. Have we? Okay, this is the Lovers in Reverse.
I love that card.
I do too. I think it's really pretty. I love love.
I hate love.
Love sucks. Just kidding.
Fuck love. It was in reverse, yeah?
So, our keywords for the Lovers: partnership, union of opposites, choices, harmony, and cooperation. And there's a little extra excerpt here. In mythology, the Lovers reflects Eros, the son of Aphrodite, the Greek goddess of love and beauty. The Romans called him Cupid, and it was his job to shoot the arrows of love, considered a form of madness at unsuspecting youths. Thus, the Greeks often depicted Eros blindfolded to represent that love is blind. But Eros has another role, to guide us toward our true destiny, which is to say, do what you love and everything else will follow naturally. Okay, oh my gosh, this is so... Reversed, the Lovers may indicate conflict, discontent, or separation from a person or within yourself. You feel unable to connect with the object of your desire, whether that's a flesh and blood lover or something you feel passionate about. And this causes unhappiness.
No shit.
Yeah. Perhaps you feel unable to express your love or believe if you do, you'll be rejected.
Yeah, because they're too young for you, bro.
Yeah, I know, that's interesting. The last time that we drew this was in connection to another underage rape victim.
Oh.
The card can also show you're uncertain about a decision you must make or unhappy with the outcome of a choice you've already made. In a reading about money, this card can represent a financial partnership falling apart. A backer may withdraw support, or a joint venture may not get off the ground. Perhaps you're struggling with a choice or lamenting a bad decision.
A couple bad decisions, I feel like.
Potentially quite a few. Interesting. I feel like that could relate to Nathan's family situation too.
Oh.
Interesting, because there's an inheritance there that I just think there's some interesting ties there. I don't know. We'll have to talk about that. If the reading is about your job, this card may indicate a delay or warn that you're trying to force cooperation between incompatible elements. Disagreements, lack of cooperation, or arguments may cause problems in your workplace. Oh, God.
I like when her eyes get real big.
Okay. In a reading about love, the Lover's reverse can indicate you and a lover are separated by circumstances, location, responsibilities, or even death. No, it doesn't mean a partner will die, but it can symbolize a lover who's gone to the other side and how you're dealing with this. Sometimes it represents manipulation, a loveless relationship, incompatibility, or quarreling. It can also encourage you to heal an inner rift. Okay, and there's like 2 more little extra excerpts here.
Okay.
I remember this from the last time that we drew it. It's been a couple of months. Can you make someone love you? No. Can you make yourself love someone else? Not much. Can you live without either being loved or loving a partner? It is probably the hardest task on this earth, but you can. And in the long run, clearing your closets of relationships that no longer work is frightening, but an utter necessity. The worst thing that can happen is you are the only one left in the equation, and you must learn to love yourself.
Oh.
Like if you murdered your whole family.
That's creepy.
In myth, song, and poetry, love and magic are often linked. When we speak of falling in love, we use such terms as enchanted, charmed, bewitched, under a lover's spell, and it often feels that way. But as Shakespeare wrote in his delightful play about magic and love, A Midsummer Night's Dream, the course of true love never did run smooth. Therefore, it's probably no surprise that the most frequently cast spells are, you guessed it, love spells. The Lover's card can play a colorful role in love spells, as you'll see in a later section of this book.
Yeah, I remember that too. I think it's super interesting that they were both literally said the word conflict.
Yeah. So this is interesting because I'm looking at it from the perspective of kind of thinking that Nathan Harvey is the perpetrator in multiple different crimes. And in the third bullet about a reading about love, it says the Lover's reverse can indicate you and a lover are separated by circumstances, location, responsibilities, or even death. And if you're thinking about someone who's used travel on a train to potentially travel around and commit crimes, and somebody who's literally killed people that, you know, he's potentially had these unconsensual sexual encounters with. It's just, I don't know. That is really interesting to me.
Yeah. I mean, we asked for the second card, but did we want it?
I don't know. I think this is really interesting because I feel like maybe I'm seeing what I want to see in terms of with Nathan, but I feel like there's certain things that, I mean, come on.
Yeah.
You know, if you already thought that based on a lot of the circumstantial evidence that he was good for it, then the tarot, like you can kind of make some connections there. Here's the thing. I don't know if we talked about this at length in really either of the episodes about this case, but the only reason that Nathan Harvey wasn't convicted was basically law enforcement got told by a judge, like, you have to stop looking at him for this. Because they were unable to make a case against him, but they kept going after him. They were dogged in their pursuit of proving that Nathan Harvey was the killer of the Hill family. And they basically, it was like an injunction, like, stop. You gotta quit messing with this guy. You can't be following him. You can't be questioning him. Do not, for the love of fuck, arrest him.
But why if he did it?
Yeah, I
we
don't think that they
know.
were able to prove that, in, no uncertain terms. So for an unsolved case, it's, you never expect that one like this is going to feel like it's totally resolved.
We're not going to solve it.
Yeah.
But
I don't know. I'm pretty sure I solved it.
Yeah.
So.
And the universe told you that you were correct.
I think that there's a lot to be said for that, there's circumstances that, would definitely indicate that, he maybe wasn't in the happiest marriage. It says this card can represent manipulation.
And that was one of the things about his story.
Right. Yeah. I mean, he's manipulated his own family, potentially murdered some of his own family.
Crazy. It used the word manipulation in there.
And he's, I would assume if he's out, sexually assaulting other women and committing murder like this, he's probably not capable of love, but the card draws a connection to a loveless relationship, incompatibility, or quarreling. Why was it that he slept out in a tent that night?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, that's so
I don't know.
weird.
I mean, it works for me. I'm curious what other people think, but I mean,
let us know.
You're going to have a hard time convincing me that any of the other people make more sense than Nathan Harvey.
You've convinced me, Nathan.
Yeah. Nathan. Oh my gosh.
Well,
all right.
I guess a wrap.
I guess that's a wrap. Yeah.
What do we do at the end? I forget. We're at the end.
Yeah.
Have a creepy ass day. See you next Tuesday. We're not going to see Nathan, that's for sure.
Hell no. I would be running. So for all of you that are listening, if you have any true crime or paranormal stories that you want us to share, maybe with the whole Pacific Northwest.
Yes, we would love to read them on the pod.
Yes, we will read them out loud.
Not just in our heads.
Yes. They don't have to be from the Pacific Northwest if you would like to share. Email us at pnwhauntsandhomicides@gmail.com. It's all spelled out, no special characters. Super duper easy peasy.
Follow us on Instagram and Facebook. Same thing as the email at pnwhauntsandhomicides, all spelled out, no special characters. Please also rate and review us on whatever platform you're listening to, and check out our stories on social media because our meme game is hot.
Agreed.
And if you agree, like Caitlin, you can also find us on Patreon and support the show.
Bitchin'. You know what I love about our show is that we don't have to try that hard to come up with blooper reel type stuff.
We really don't.
I know. If you just hit record from the moment that you get here.
Yeah. It's real natural. Our lives are blooper reels.
All right. As if to prove our point.
Oh, good Lord.
Okay.